Greetings and welcome to the Saroth image experiment for my live Friday night extravaganza. I'd actually scheduled it for 10 o'clock and I thought it was 10 o'clock, and then I looked at my watch and it was only 9 o'clock. Maybe I'm having like a foreshadowing of the clocks going back or something, I don't know. Maybe I'm in a different dimension. So tonight I will be discussing the seminal, for me anyway, book by Peter J. Carroll called Liber, Null and Psychonaut. But first I must torture my guitar. It's very tricky. I'm going to make a horrible mess of it because it's like you've got to move from there to there to there. But it's like a hurdy-gurdy. So happy weekend to everyone. Halloween weekend, I think. Is it? When's Halloween? Monday? So there'll be no Halloween stuff here. My guitar playing is scary enough. So this is my new song. It's called, well, it's not called anything yet, to be honest. Okay, that's awful. Maybe shouldn't have started with that one. Let me try something else. How's the volume? Hey Phoenix, hey, I was worried you weren't talking to me because I haven't seen you for ages, but thank you so much for dropping in. I kind of like this phaser swirl thing. Interesting swirly kind of noise with the phaser there. Can you hear my mic okay? Because my volume's broken and I've been very loud on group streams lately, so I hope I'm not like blowing your ears out. I've also got to respect the neighbours. I'm still learning. Okay, that'll do. Oh yeah, I've got to, I can't actually see, my eyesight's so bad. I have to read the chat on my phone. Where am I? So yeah, I'm actually enjoying, I never used to enjoy live streams, but I don't really get the nerves that I used to get, so that's groovy. So how are you, Phoenix? Let me go in as this, and then I go in as that, and then, yes, then I can see the live chat. Sup? I can hear it fine. I can't stay long, mate. Sorry, but this was... What? You're leaving and you just got here? Okay, that's fine. What? Right, so tonight I shall be discussing the classic magic book, Liber, Null and Psychonaut, written by Peter J. Carroll, original chaos magician. The group he formed was called the Illuminates of Thanatos. Thanatos being death and Eros being sex, so sex, death, cult kind of thing, which very sexy and lovely. And it was kind of revolutionary for me because the only two magic books I think I'd read up to that point were David Conway's Occult Primer, which I got in the school library when I was about like 12 or 13. So obviously I was reading it very literally, you know, the astral plane was like an actual dimension that you could reach by these magical practices. My idea of it is a bit more nuanced now. And then we used to have a shop called Bargain Books, and I was a bookworm or a book wolf, because worms are lowly animals and wolves are great animals. So I was a book wolf, and I found a copy of Magic in Theory and Practice, hardcover. It had a very vivid pink cover, as I remember, with yellow writing, and I'd never seen this before. The pages were all kind of ragged, like, you know, the edge of the pages, as if they hadn't been cut properly. I'm sure that book would be worth a few quid nowadays. It was just in like the bargain bin thing, so I probably stole it as well, because I had a habit of stealing books back then. But then there was there is still a shop called Plan 9 in Aberdeen. It's on Rosemount Viaduct, and it was like a comic store, and it had your geeky, nerdy figurines and magic cards. I mean like Magic the game and all that role-playing game stuff. But they also had a shelf which was full of Weiser, Samuel Weiser, I believe it is. Their symbol was like an ankh, a new falcon as well. So through them I was able to get access to Robert Anton Wilson, William Burroughs, and the book that I will be discussing tonight, Liber, Null and Psychonaut. So being a young man, I think I must have been 14, 15 by this time, I had my initiatory experience with mushrooms, that famous day in the Duthie Park that I always harp on about. So I had seen the alternative reality, and everything that I'd looked at in magic was kind of old, and I'm an Aquarian, so I tend towards science and skepticism and stuff. So Liber Null seemed to offer psychological and quasi-scientific explanations for the phenomena of magic, which I was far more comfortable with than looking at early modern grimoires. I've got a bee in my bonnet about grimoires. I know there's a huge movement to get back to the basics of grimoires and recognise spirits as spirits, but I don't think it's as simple as that. My idea about how spirits and even gods evolve is ancient men, or even Neanderthal or even Homo erectus or whatever, started to see a mountain or a river or the sun and the moon, and it's a very natural tendency to anthropomorphize these natural phenomena. So I think it wasn't the gods that were pre-existent, it was human consciousness that was existent, and somehow over hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, our concentrated thought that mountain is a god, that planet is a god, we've almost created them as a tulpa, or a thought form, or a servitor. And over time, the energy that human consciousness, which is a mystery still, to me anyway, accrued, and these gods started to take on a life of their own and became independent beings, and then totally escaped the control of the human shamans. Hey, Keats, nice to see you, man. So all gods are egregores created by human consciousness. I could be wrong on that, I probably am. But it's an interesting thought. So, Liber, Null and Psychonaut, like I say, written in the late 70s, I think. Britain was in the grip of punk and post-punk. Everything was being questioned. The hippie movement of the 60s was pretty much despised by the punks. And I'd love to, I've got Dave Lee coming on the channel on the 25th of November, I believe, and he was one of the original Chaots. I think he was an illuminate of Thanteros, and he's going to be fascinating. I can't wait to talk to him about the early days. It was all centred in Yorkshire. I believe my friend Richard Cole must have been involved there somewhere, because some of his ideas definitely jive with the Chaos Magic crew. I mean, the Horus Toy experiment or magical operation depends on one of the key elements of Chaos Magic, which is kind of surprise, fear. I don't want to go too much into that, but I recognise the telltale signs that Richard has been influenced by Chaos Magic. So I might just have to read a bit from my notes because my memory is like shit. So Liber, Null and Psychonaut starts with a diagram of the Western magical tradition and how they think it kind of evolved. So you've got shamanism at the top. Obviously shamanism is the start of everything, and then it goes through the Knights Templar, medieval magic and grimoires, all that. Crowley, obviously OTO, so it's the idea of this secret tradition being passed through from generation to generation to generation, ending up with, of course, the IoT, the Illuminates of Thanateros. And I would say that tradition is still being carried on by We the Hallowed and, of course, Temple Babylon Choronzon. The show that we had planned for the 30th is now not going ahead. We had an informal chat. I'm going to release little chunks of that because every time you speak to Bobby and Groucho, it's a fascinating, interesting thing. So I'm going to give you little teasers until we get the proper show arranged. And Leah's going to be there as well, fantastic artist. I just can't say enough good things about We the Hallowed, Keats, Eric Miller, Derek, Lux, Michelle Embry, it goes on and on. So I love you guys. So the first thing in Liber MMM, I think they were all written as separate pamphlets and then they were tied together. So Liber MMM is the 4th degree of the IoT, which is like an outer degree. So it's all about training, magical trance. The thing I loved about Liber, Null and Psychonaut was it was all about altered states of consciousness are absolutely essential to magic. Not necessarily through drugs, but they are there. So your training is mind control, and it's not like MK Ultra controlling someone else's mind, it's controlling your own mind. So the first exercise is remaining motionless for as long as you can, not even blinking if possible. Then you move on to, he compares it to yoga. And he also mentions this thing called personal metamorphosis, which is really what I'm interested in. It's more of, it's not just results magic, it's actual a raising of consciousness and almost an evolution of consciousness, where I think, you could say it was high magic. I don't like to draw distinctions between high magic and low magic, but low magic, well, let's not call it low magic, let's call it results magic. All you're trying to do is achieve your aim. You're not looking for any mystical union with God or anything like that. You're not looking at, it's quite practical. And absolutely I've used results magic. Sigils are pure results magic. So I ain't knocking it, but I'm just saying I'm pleased that you included this idea of raising your consciousness into a kind of magical, mystical kind of awareness. Again, I'll relate it back to the psilocybin and DMT experience, all that. So, oh yes, I'm looking at the wrong thing. So after you've controlled, the motionless thing, you go on to breathing. You learn how to control your breathing. Same as the Golden Dawn, they had various different breathing techniques for each grade. So you breathe in for 2, hold for 4, breathe out for whatever. And it's just really, so you're getting to know your body and how it works with the mind and the phenomena that can happen, much like Keats's I think you called it Zim or something like that, when you used to lock yourself in your closet and meditate and play guitar and stuff. I would include that as a form of magical gnosis. Gnosis is another big theme in the book, but I'm not quite there yet. And the motionlessness and the breathing leads you to this thing called not thinking, which is just plainly a kind of meditation technique where your mind is completely empty of all thoughts. And anyone that's ever tried to do this will find it's extremely hard. It's very hard to stop. Thoughts are cutting, with me anyway, with most people. Like, you've got millions of thoughts juggling around in your brain, so to quiet that, it takes a lot of discipline. Chaos magic might be kind of postmodern and not, I think people think it's just, you just do what you want, and but there is true discipline in this syllabus, which I did attempt. I wouldn't say I mastered it. So yeah, that's all kind of magical trances. So Peter J. Carroll describes magic as a science and an art, which is not unusually. There's a lot of Thelemic influence, obviously, at the time, the late 70s. There wasn't a whole lot else out there. Like I say, in that comic book store, there was Crowley, there was Burroughs, there was Robert Anton Wilson, and then this book arrived, and I loved the cover. From the very start, I just fell in love with the cover, the contents. I liked that it was modern and happening now. They said if you want to try the course and get in touch with the order, I would still like to be, because the IoT still exists. Julian Bain's a member, and I was hinting to him, but he didn't offer me an initiation. So maybe Dave Lee will. So once you've mastered being motionless, absolutely got control of your breath, and you manage to go for, short periods even without a thought coming in. It's an old Eastern technique. You go on to what Peter J. Carroll calls object concentration, where you just focus solely on an object with no symbolic significance. Part of the trick is that it's got to be pretty meaningless, or you're going to bring in a whole lot of intellectual baggage when that's the last thing you want to do. So if you're picking an object to concentrate on, pick something that has absolutely no meaning for you, like a little box or a mark on the wall or something. And then there are sound concentrations, where you imagine a sound in your head. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a guitar chord, it could be a bell, it could be a door buzzer, and you emulate this in your imagination, and you concentrate on that just again and again and again and again, till again it blocks out all thought. That's really what it's about, is stopping the monkey mind, the chattering internal dialogue, to give yourself space to create magic. Another one is mantras, repeating pretty much any mantras. There's Om Mani Padme Hum, there's Zazaz, Zazas, and all that kind of stuff. So you're sitting motionless, you're maybe gazing at an object, and at the same time you're running through this mantra in your head. And that again brings on an altered state of consciousness or a magical trance. There's also, which is a little bit more advanced, image concentration, where you take a simple shape, say a cross, a circle, crescent moon, and you project it onto like the screen of your imagination, and hold it there as long as you can. Don't let it transform, don't let it change shape. You've got to maintain the image. So I would say just mastering those things could be anything, depending on how many hours you're putting in, from a month to bloody a year. It depends. So once you're onto that, once you've kind of mastered the basics, so you've got some control over your mind and your body, he brings up this thing called metamorphosis, which really interests me. Also known as the Great Work, which is also a kind of Crowleyan term, 418, the Great Work. And that is the evolution of consciousness. So I've written a few quotes down. So he says, even a slight ability to change oneself is more valuable than any power over the external universe. You know, so the greatest magic thing is to change your actual yourself, your belief systems, because at the base of chaos magic is the idea that we are, and this is in Robert Anton Wilson's work as well, Timothy Leary, the 8th Circuit brain model, that we are programmed chaotically and accidentally at various vulnerable, imprint states. So when you're a toddler, you imprint kind of, or a baby, sorry, you'll go towards something that is welcoming and back away from something that is frightening. And you've got 4 stages which every human being has got, and then there's 4 further stages which start to get into the magic and mysticism area, and you know, these are the evolving circuits. You know, I'm obsessed with evolution. I think evolution's still happening, and I believe, honestly, I don't know if it's good or bad, probably most people would say it's bad, but I think AI might be the end game for the human species. You know, we might be the individual cells that make up this AI, which doesn't have these frail human bodies and can travel through space and have immense knowledge, you know, because we are glorified primates, and AI would be, you know, a step closer to being somewhat godlike. An interesting aside, has anyone heard of the this lobe phenomena, where an AI artist in Sweden did some weird reverse thing with the name Brando, and suddenly this very strange looking woman started showing up in his digital art, and he combined it with other things, and you know, the images got more grotesque and more horrifying. Very interesting. Do your own research on that one. So yeah, so metamorphosis is a willed restructuring of the mind, which is the goal of magic in my mind. You know, I'm not after well, you know, I wouldn't mind tons of money and a beautiful girlfriend and a fancy house, but I don't generally do magic to get those things. I want to evolve as a human being, all that kind of stuff. And duality is a very important concept in Liber, Null and Psychonaut, because when you think about it, every quality contains its opposite. So you only have happiness because of sadness, you only have darkness because of light, you know, this dialectical opposite thing. So he thinks the best cure for the human condition is laughter. Great as a banishing, you know, if you do a really heavy, hey Michelle, fantastic to see you. Laughter is the best banishing thing you can do. And funnily enough, I was talking to Bobby the other day on that thing that I'm releasing little slices of, and you know, they do like really quite serious, they take their magic very seriously. They do the ALW cipher and come up with all these crazy correspondences, and some of it, he said at one point that he was just wanted to give up because it was getting too spooky. The synchronicities were coming too hard and fast, but he would always end up turning it into a kind of joke or something humorous, like the heir apparent, and you know, these little puns, and that's the way to do it. You know, if you start to become obsessed with magic, it rarely ends well. Or obsessed with results. I mean, that's the, you know, lust of result is the worst way to do magic. And what this Liber, Null and Psychonaut tells you is, how to make a sigil, forget it, then charge it. It's very hard. Like, this is what I'm struggling with Richard T. Cole's Horus toy, is you have to build an erotic fixation with someone that you're in touch with, like you'll see maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and this goes on for a while, and then one day you make up your bed to look like there's a person inside the bed, your love object, and when you come home at night and you see the cushions all, it looks like a human's in the bed, you think, oh my god, that's my object of desire, and the extreme emotion that causes gives a powerful charge to any spell that you do. But I'm struggling to find a constant object of desire. It changes all the time. Like, oh no, not that one, that one, that one. And I really can't understand how I could leave in the morning, deliberately make up something that looked like someone lying in bed, and then manage to forget it by the time I came home, so I would get a sufficient shock to activate the spell, sigil, whatever it is you're trying to do. But I'm persevering. So, where were we? Yeah, so laughter, non-attachment, and equally non-disinterest. So you're kind of holding a balance between not being disinterested but not being obsessed. Reminds me of the neither thing of Austin Osman Spare, who is obviously a massive influence on Chaos Magic and Liber Null. Quote here, laughter is the only tenable attitude in a universe which is a joke played on itself. And then he goes back to this single pointed awareness that's needed. So as an exercise, he suggests that you pick a random habit which can easily be dispensed with. Not like smoking or drugs or something like that. It's like, always making up your bed the same way, or, just some trivial habit that you're not really going to miss, and then deliberately adopting another habit. And I think what that shows is the fluidity, and again this relates to the 8 circuit model, of your imprints. I had a very profound experience when I was coming off benzodiazepines. I was doing Golden Dawn stuff. I think it was Zealot material. So it was quite, you had to do lesser banishing pentagram ritual, you had to do the banishing hexagram ritual, there was meditations, there was visualizing the middle pillar and all that. And I was doing this while coming off benzodiazepines, where you're extremely spaced out, pretty close to insane actually. And I realised that my personality was being stripped away. I thought, that's just what is the essential me? And the answer I came up with was there was no essential me. It was all just what my parents had told me, what my friends at school had told me, what I'd read in books. The actual Pia, as they would call it, the life force, or I guess in an unsophisticated way you could say the soul, is really a blank slate. It's a form of consciousness that is not constricted by any ideas, ideology, common sense, anything like that. So then, so I'll just read a bit. So you select a minor habit at random and delete it. At the same time, choose a new habit at random, but you've got to choose something that can't fail. So like I say, it can't be stopping smoking. It's got to be like, I usually sit here, but now I'm going to start to sit there. Just these tiny tweaks, and that opens you to the infinite possibilities of magic technique. So the next section, it goes on to magic, and the first thing it advises you to do is develop an effective banishing ritual. Excuse my slightly drunk, slurred voice, but you know, it is Friday night. I work hard. I'm entitled to get pissed on a Friday night and inflict my terrible, boorish personality on you guys. So yeah, develop an effective banishing ritual. I mean, I'd be surprised if any of my audience weren't familiar with the LBRP or like the Star Ruby or any of those things where you're... Peter Carroll suggests try not to think in flat terms, you know, just a two-dimensional circle. Try and think of a 3D shape that actually encloses you in like a dome or a pyramid. Use symbols of power. Peter Carroll suggests the good old, pentagram, or the 8-starred, 8-thingied, you know, the chaos symbol. It's like a circle and it's got 8 kind of arrows pointing out. You can use that. And what I like about Peter Carroll's work is it's very non-dogmatic. It's kind of boiled down to essentials, and he leaves you to work out the details. You know, he gives you the kind of theory and the basic idea, and then it's left to you to decide what you do. So for developing a banishing ritual, you get a magical weapon, which can be a ring, like this beautiful magical ring which I've had for a very long time, although somebody dared to say it was a cheap wherever the stone is. I got it in Edinburgh about, it must be 20 years ago now. I was sitting with my friends at an outdoor cafe and this shoplifter just came out and said, anyone want to buy this ring? I was like, yeah, me. Tenner, beautiful. It's sure more expensive than that. So you get your magical weapon, you know. Oh, I'll show you these daggers that I got. So these are from a hand-forged guy down in England. So the first one I got was this, which is beautiful, you know. I mean, it's got just a very simple iron handle, but that could easily be fixed with any material you want, like bone or like antler or wood, or, you know, a very versatile little dagger there. And then I thought, I need something bigger. So this is pretty much a machete. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? So this is my current magical dagger. So yeah, you get yourself a weapon, you use a 3D barrier, you reinforce with power symbols, pentagrams, and words of power, and you also use your magical trance. Magical trance is the basis of all magic in this book. You've got to be in a magical trance before you do anything, or it ain't going to work. Your conscious mind is going to fight with your will, and there's a massive conflicting, because each thing contains its opposite. You want to succeed, but also kind of want to fail. Part of you wants to fail. I know I've done magic rituals, especially evocations of demonic or slightly scary spirits, when I'm kind of hoping it doesn't show up, even though I'm going through the motions. I know at the back of my mind I'd be far happy. I'd be far safer if just nothing happened. You know, if I was doing a goetic operation and the spirit materialized in front of me, I would probably die of fear. But fear itself is a very powerful. You're looking to get yourself into like a peak. So there's two forms. I'm getting ahead of myself. Two forms of gnosis. There's the inhibitory, which is slowing your mind down, slowing your body down until, you know, your mind finally stops thinking and you get that kind of samadhi in one pointed focus. And then you've got your excitatory gnosis, which I'm far more into, which is kind of working yourself up into a frenzy, you know, drums, drugs, dancing, you know, it's a kind of ecstatic thing. And it struck me, it's a little bit like Nietzsche's idea of Apollonian, which is very centered and thought out, compared to the Dionysian, which is wild and free. So I know I'm not looking at chat, but I will in a minute. In fact, I'll have a look at chat now, see if anyone's saying anything. Yes, absolutely, my guitar is a magical weapon. I absolutely adore it. In fact, I'm gonna play that thing that I can't play. But isn't it beautiful? You know, this was only 220 quid. Squire, which is just Fender with slightly cheaper parts. Offset, which means Jaguars, Jazzmasters. I really don't like Strats. I think they're ugly looking things. Telecasters, a bit nicer, but I'm in this Facebook group called Offset Guitars, basically, and it's all like, you know, they're customizing, and, you know, I don't know, there's something about Jazzmasters. Maybe it's because Sonic Youth, you know, Thurston Moore used to customize his Jazzmasters. Kurt Cobain used a Jazzmaster, which Fender turned into the Jaguar, I believe. Dinosaur Jr., you know, all the bands that I liked in the 90s used these babies. I was originally going to buy the 40th anniversary Squire, which was over £500. It was beautiful, and it had that kind of trademark round bit there. But apparently, you know, this thing never goes out of tune. Well, it does occasionally, but it's just, I just love it. And honestly, I play it every single day. I get up like 2 hours early in the morning so I can get some practice in, and then at night, you know, I'm just picking it up, putting it down, picking it up. So I am going to get better, but I don't want to learn blues scales and all that boring stuff. I want to stick with chords, and I don't know, I just, you know, blues scales are inevitably going to lead to this kind of which has been going on for ages. I want to be a bit more experimental, so I like this. I can't play it properly, so I'm going to fuck it up, but I imagine it's a kind of early sort of Rolling Stones kind of hurdy-gurdy, and I can hear like drum breaks in it, ba-boom, 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 boom, boom. But I really need to master some kind of software so I can layer up guitar, put vocals on it. None of the apps I've got, I tend to use my phone rather than my desktop. None of the apps I've got actually will just let me play a guitar, you know, like a couple of chords, and then let me sing over the top so I can hear the guitar. I have to kind of just improvise over the top of something I can't hear. It's very difficult. So. D. Back to so I like it. I've got my phaser on there, but it really should be on tremolo because it sounds better on tremolo. So thank you for bringing up the guitar, Keats. Right. Where was I? So, okay, I think we're on to... Oh, where am I? I think we're on to sigils now, which is, you know, Austin Osman Speer created the idea of sigils, really, although symbols have been around for a long time. But the Speer method is what's in here. So I'll read the notes that I wrote. So just wanting something, you know, like like that New Age idea that you only have to kind of wish for something and it's going to come. Not effective as will, you know, it's hard to actually define will. Will is the drive to achieve something. Will gets into a dialogue with mind, and this is a quote. Sigils work because they stimulate the will to work subconsciously, bypassing the mind. Now the mind is, you know, the functional thinking part of us, which kind of holds us back from magic because it's concentrated on survival, immediate tasks. It's a kind of left-brained, logical, designed to work, designed to produce kind of thing. And what magic needs is a more right-brain, holistic approach to things. So you don't want your mind and your will interfering with each other, because you do, like I said, every time you have a wish, it automatically conjures up its opposite, subconsciously. So sigils work because they stimulate the will to work subconsciously, bypassing the mind. And by the mind, I think he means what is later described as the psychic sensor, which is a fantastic concept that I learned a lot from. Is your normal thinking mind will not allow say supernatural stuff to happen, although I don't think anything is supernatural. It's natural. It's just kind of undiscovered science. So he gives the three parts of sigil magic. You construct your sigil, and the sigil doesn't have to be just like the old crossing out words and making a picture. You forget the sigil. I found a way around this, and what I used to do was do a bunch of sigils at the same time, maybe 6 or 7. I do them all very, I don't try and make them all fancy. I try and make them all very basic, so they all look much like each other. So you do easily forget which one's which, and then you activate them without knowing which sigil you're activating. Maybe a couple of weeks after you've designed them all. So you've got absolutely no idea. You can vaguely remember what your desires were, but you've no idea which sigil it attaches to. So by charging it, and charging, the old sigil magic, chaos magic joke is just, young guys masturbating over bits of paper in their bedrooms. But it doesn't have to be so. There are other methods. So apart from just the word sigil, you can actually do like a pictorial sigil, where it's not words you're using, it's images, like maybe something that represents the desire, but not too much. So maybe an eye, wings, yeah. And also, one that I'd completely forgotten about was a mantra. So you do much the same as you would do for like a letter sigil, but you make a word out of it, or a phrase, jumble it up. So like I would like to, or I wish to have a sports car, might turn out to be Scar Poor Awish, Scar Poor Awish, Scar Poor Arish. And you repeat that and repeat that. The meaning is lost. It goes into your subconscious mind, and that's what does the work. Hey, Stephen Ronan, long time no see. Oh, you just wrote that, long time no see. Huh. Oh, what, the music you thought was very Stone Rosy? I liked the album, The Stone Roses, but I saw them live at the Albert Hall in London and they were fucking awful. Ian Brown was one of the worst live singers I've ever seen. Their sound was all terrible. It was a great experience, but the music was shite. The Happy Mondays that we saw on the same weekend, a bunch of us hired a minibus, piled it up with beer and weed, and we drove to Widnes for the Happy Mondays, and that was when the ecstasy rave scene was really kicking off in Britain, and I took acid because we couldn't get ecstasy, and I've never experienced a thing like it. The whole place was just bouncing, it was joyous, you know, how I miss the 90s. Okay, so you construct your sigil, yeah. You construct it, you forget it, and then you charge it. You charge during trance. Effective ways of charging it are obviously orgasm, elation, fear. Now, fear is a very effective form of gnosis, and I think that's why a lot of magical activity happens in graveyards, and you know it's got that's you know, it's scary. I've heard of certain cults initiating people by making them dig up like a skeleton from a graveyard and doing stuff with it, and it's all to create that fear. And then it's kind of when you're at a peak experience, you would call it. That's when you can imprint new, you know, so you're re-imprinting, as in the 8th Circuit model as described by Levy and Wilson. You know, magic is literally reprogramming yourself, you know, because a lot of us have had very difficult childhoods. I did, and you know, I'm fine now. Okay, cheers. So the next section is dreaming, which is so I think he divides into the first section anyway is metamorphosis, so that's changing yourself, sigils, which is a kind of results magic, and then dreaming. And I quote here: the magician aims to gain full access to the dream plane and control it. He says this often turns into a battle with a psychic censor. I'm sure we've all experienced these liminal states when you're kind of half awake and half asleep, and you realise you're dreaming, and you get some control over it. Beautiful feeling. I love that feeling of being half a liminal. You know, it's you know all the stuff about liminal. You know, Crossroads is a liminal space. That's why it's so associated, with magic. He advises you to keep a dream journal, so you've got to have a pad and a pen by your bed, and as soon as you wake up, write down every single detail of the dream that you can remember. And I have done this, and honest to God, you start to predict the future. One very vivid dream I had was of a helicopter kind of spiraling out of control and hitting a building, and then I was watching the news one day, and it just looked exactly like my dream, and I was like, fucking hell, you know, if I hadn't written down, although I do remember my dreams because I tend to think them through during the day. Like last night I was being chased by some drug dealer with a knife and all that kind of stuff, and I'm always in a slightly different city, and I get lost, don't know the way, can't remember how I got there, you know, because obviously my logical mind is still working, thinking, whoa, how did I get there, and how do I get home, and well, shit, I must have been drunk because I can't remember anything that led to this scenario. But of course dreams just jump from one scenario to the next. So yeah, and if you're going to have a dream journal, make it a big one, because they become extremely big. Keep your magic journal separate from your dream journal, but if something like that, you get hit, like the helicopter falling and then me seeing it on the news, you would mark that in your magical diary as a kind of success. I always think when I have a deja vu, it's not like I've been here before. It's I've dreamt this, and I do. It just feels, it feels. But the interesting thing about deja vu is, it's kind of, it works. So okay, I've been in this exact place before. I've heard that person say the exact thing before, but you can never tell what they're going to say next. So that says something, I'm not sure what. Okay, so he further suggests that you start your kind of dream magic exploration by selecting a topic for a dream and keep it simple. And again, he always stresses, don't make it like something massively magical, like you want to meet Lamb or something from magic folklore Hecate. Just say, I want to see a candlestick in my dream tonight. Start small, baby steps. To see an object. So before you'd go to sleep, you'd strongly visualize the object, in my case a candlestick, with a silent mind, which again is going back to the magical trance. So by now in the curriculum, you should have developed an easy way of getting into this magical trance. Breathing, object concentration, sound concentration, it really lays it out. It's I wish I had a paper copy. I've had many in my time, but the best books are the ones that you always lend to people and never get back. So I'm sure I've had like 3 or 4 copies. Try with that. Just small at first, and then get used to kind of getting into that liminal zone, and then it becomes lucid dreaming, and then the gates are open. Then he goes on to the initiate syllabus, 3rd degree. So the bit I've just covered is the 4th degree. So this includes Liber Lux and Liber Nox. I believe Lux is light and Nox is darkness. White magic, he categorizes as the acquisition of knowledge, faith in the universe or kind of God, and black magic is the acquisition of personal power and faith in the self. But neither are mutually exclusive. Both seem to meet in the middle. So Liber Lux starts to go into the theoretical aspects of some of the terminology. I mean, I'm not going to cover the whole book tonight, obviously. So it's the theoretical aspects of chaos, like terminology. So chaos, Kia, which was another Austin Osman Spare idea, duality, aether, which is like a field of potentiality, like a quantum kind of idea of infinite potentials, and you manage to drag one out, and mind. So he describes duality as humanity's usual condition. Happiness exists only because of misery and pain. Only because of misery. Pain only exists because of comfort. Good only exists because of evil. All phenomena must be paired, as senses are only equipped to perceive differences. The mind splits everything it encounters into 2, which I pretty much agree with. Now, Kia is your will plus your perception. So it's your desire plus your way of just perceiving what's around you. Basically, that's not really what it is. But you could kind of compare it to the idea of a soul or a ka in Egyptian mythology. Now, chaos is the kind of what New Agers would call source. it's responsible for the origin and continuance of events. I like this bit. He says, free from childish, anthropomorphic ideas of religion. So it's the source of consciousness. It strives towards complexity. I think I read somewhere all things tend towards complexity as they evolve. Things are getting more and more complex, which again leads into my AI theory and also evolution. We began as single cells. We became more complex by splitting the cell, and now look at us. We're almost gods in a way. Twin impulses. So this is Kia. Twin impulses to immerse in duality and escape from it. So it wants to be in duality because that's where it's comfortable, but it also has the opposite idea of escaping from duality into wholeness. Kia's second impulse is the mystical quest. Make of that what you will. And another definition of terms, aether is the medium by which non-existent chaos translates into real effects. And I've written here as a note, it sounds like quantum uncertainty or Yetzirah, one of the four worlds of the Kabbalah. And it's also like a bit like Plato's idea of these pre-existing perfect geometric shapes which don't actually exist in nature, but they exist in this field of potentiality. Here's another quote. It's the mutability of the etheric which has given rise to the huge variety of magical activity and supportive thought forms all over the universe. So it's like a plastic medium which can be manipulated by magic. Stripped of all local symbolism and terminology, all systems of magic show remarkable uniformity of method. Absolutely. All systems derive from shamanism, of course. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but at the start of the book, he has a diagram which it starts with shamanism, which goes absolutely along with Jake Stratton-Kent's idea of the Greek goes being kind of the first magicians. The native shamans. They were the founders of. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it mentioned a cave in Australia where they used to think it was just regular Jews that were putting their handprints there and doing like imaginative painting, but they now think it was specifically for shamanic journeying. You would put your handprint on the wall, and then after your experience, presumably with a trance method, not saying there was necessarily entheogens involved, but I believe there was, and some of them showed grey aliens, which is very interesting, an archetype that keeps coming up and keeps coming up, So then we get on to, for me, one of the most interesting parts of the book, which is gnosis. Now, gnosis is an altered state of consciousness, and it's the key to all magical powers. Stopping the internal dialogue through meditation, through the things I've described, motionlessness, object concentration, sound concentration, one-pointedness, and that's called gnosis. And there are two kinds, as I think I've mentioned before. The inhibitory, which means your mind is progressively silenced, and the excitory, your mind is raised to high excitement. And there's a nice little quote here. Let the mind become as a flame or a pool of still water. And then he brings up the death posture, famously invented by Austin Osman Spare. And that's a very uncomfortable, it's really putting your, well, it reminds me a lot of bondage in BDSM, which I'm very interested in at the moment. There's another fantastic technique here, mirror staring. I've tried this and it's extremely weird. I don't want to put expectations in people's minds, but try it. So you sit before hopefully a full length mirror, maybe just in like an asana, a comfortable pose, and you absolutely stare at your own reflection. Try not to blink, do not divert your gaze, try and keep your own image as solid as possible. But it's very difficult. All these exercises are very difficult. They require intense concentration, and I had very strange effects when I tried this. I can say the whole mirror began to mist up like smoke, and my own face started to morph into animals, and oh man, it was amazing. And that ties into another of Austin Osman Spare's ideas called atavistic resurgence, which means that because we have come from a single cell up into simple kind of sea creatures and then eventually mammals, we can access every step of that evolution with magical techniques. So he says, sit before a mirror 2 feet away and stare at the mirror with unblinking, corpse-like stare. I like the way he writes. We're going on to kind of creating servitors, tulpas, thought forms, whatever you want to call them. Sexual workings are very good for creating independent orders of being. So if you were invoking a god or a goddess, in my case, you would visualize your partner as Isis or Hecate or something like that. And yeah, that works. Prolonged sexual excitement, which is now called edging, is very useful for divination. And I was racking my brain for the term that Crowley used for that. It was like automatic, erotic. It means you're sexually at a peak for so long that you go into an altered state of consciousness. And this interested me as well. He says, it may be necessary to regain one's original sexuality from the mass of fantasy and association into which it mostly sinks. And that struck a chord with me because we pick up these little fetishes and it's got to be this way, it's got to be that way. Wouldn't it be nice to erase all that programming and just experience sex as a pure thing instead of the pornography influenced? I like kink, I love it, but it would be nice to kind of get back to that purity so you could start to defile yourself all over again. It's kind of like getting clean so you can enjoy your heroin again. Yeah, and it also says, a very tricky thing to do is arousing lust without mental props or fantasy. So that means you're not fantasizing about a woman or a man, you're not watching pornography, you're not doing that. You just manage to arouse lust in yourself without an object. I think that would be very difficult for me anyway. Oh yeah, so I've got here coming soon on the Saroth the Mage experiment. I've got Dave Lee, he was there at the beginning of Chaos Magic, very nice chap, I've spoke to him. He's coming on the 25th of November. I'm taking a bit of a gamble on a guy called David W. Haar, who is influenced by the Temple of Set. Very interesting guy. I've spoke to him. Again, I will say he was an exception. He approached me, but we've got mutual friends and his work seemed quite good. But please do not approach me for shows. I'm not being snobbish or anything, but you know, I would get inundated with people that, you know, I need to pick my own guests, so sorry about that. And then we've got the big Temple Babylon Karanzon show, which was going to be tomorrow night, but we're going to put it back. It'll be sometime in November, and it's going to be a classic. They've just, or we've just released Listening Post Alpha Year 1, which is a big old book, pretty much comprising all the work that the 4 full-time members of Temple Babylon Karanzon have been doing with spirit box sessions, scrying, you know, lots of stuff in there. Don Webb from the Temple of Set, one-time leader of the Temple of Set, he's coming on at some point in November. And while I'm here, I have to remember this wonderful woman called Maggie. She's from Scandinavia, and her last video was about Hecate, and she gave a big shout out to me. She even put my channel in her title description, and you know, her channel's called the Classic Angels Magick, and I know she does a lot of fantastic work in our community. She helps get people off drugs. She helps like young people that have got into the occult and maybe like gone the bloody, oh what's that, become a living god and all that bullshit. And she's trying to like show them proper magic. And funnily enough, she holds me up as an example of an honest magician, because I don't make claims, you know. I don't pretend everything's perfect all the time, you know. So, very nice. So please, anybody that's watching now, please subscribe to the Classic Angels Magick channel. It's very, very good. She just, I love her. And she gave me a pilot. The day that she put out that video, I got like 6 subs from just one family in Scandinavia. So, Ninny, all you guys, wonderful. So, please subscribe. I'll put a link to her under the channel. Okay, right, so let's get back to the idea of inhibitive and excitatory magic. So sensory overload is something that I have done. You know, when I used to do my rituals, I used to have like very loud bardo pond or, you know, psychedelic music playing. There would be candles everywhere. You'd be feeling the heat off the candles, sweating, fasting. You know, you're really trying to excite yourself into a state of Dionysian frenzy, so that the magic can be done. So he describes it as ecstatic trance. It's me that describes it as Dionysian, and he says, in certain tantric rites, the candidate is first beaten by his guru. Hashish is forced down him. He's taken at midnight to a dark cemetery for sacred sex. Thus, he achieves union with God. Okay, you know, there's a lot more, but I think I will end it there because I feel like I'm just chuntering on and chuntering on. So I will do a further show on this book because I think it's one of the most important magical books of all time. I would have included it in my thing, but I just don't have a paper copy. You know, if anyone's not in the Saroth the Mage Facebook group, please join and give me suggestions of what you like, what you don't like about the channel. Now that I'm a single young buck, these eyes look like the guy from the Trailer Park Boys. You know, please let me know what content you like and what you don't like, because I won't necessarily listen, but it's good to know what you like. So I'll play you out with my amazing hurdy-gurdy riff again. Oh, I'll put it on tremolo though. I love this tremolo. I love this amp. It's a Fender Mustang. It's a modelling amp, you know, it's digital, but it still sounds pretty good to me. Good night, my darlings. Thank you for coming. See you all next Friday.